Returning to Zion. Lesson 23, 519 BC. King Darius, the second decree. Ezra 5 is the fifth chapter of the book of Ezra in the Old Testament of the Christian Bible, or the book of Ezra Nehemiah in the Hebrew Bible, which treats the book of Ezra and the book of Nehemiah as one book. Jewish tradition states that Ezra is the author of Ezra Nehemiah, as well as the book of Chronicles, but modern scholars generally accept that a compiler from 5th century BC is the final author of these books. This chapter records the contribution of the prophets Haggai and Zechariah to the temple building project and the investigation by Persian officials. The section comprising chapter 1 to 6 describes the history before the arrival of Ezra to the land of Judah. The foundation of the temple had already been built, and there was a pause. By reading Ezra 5, it will be seen that the enemies of Israel caused them much trouble. And finally, the work ceased. But in the second year of the reign of Darius, king of Persia, the prophets Haggai and Zechariah prophesied unto the Jews that were in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of the God of Israel, even unto them. Ezra 5 and 1. See also Haggai 1st and 2nd chapters, and Zechariah 1st and 2nd chapters. So Zerubbabel rose up with the Jews and began in earnest to build the house of God, and with them were the prophets of God, helping them. With the ransom returning to Zion. Returning to Zion. Medes and Persians overcome Babylon. 539 BC. While the Babylonians were confidently celebrating a feast, the strong river and moat protecting the city became very shallow, and the Medes and Persians were able to enter the city. Herodotus 1:191. They captured the city without a battle, and Darius the Mede was put in charge. Daniel 5:31. Finally, nearly 200 years after Isaiah wrote about Babylon, part of his prophecy was fulfilled. God told Isaiah, "Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, who will not regard silver, and as for gold, they will not delight in it." Isaiah 13:17. The Medes captured Babylon just as Isaiah predicted. They captured the city without a battle and did not plunder the city. However, the other details of the prophecy had not happened yet. Let's read also more information about Isaiah 13. In the Bible, Isaiah 13 and 1 says, "The burden against Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos saw." At the time of Isaiah's prediction, Babylon was one of the largest and most important cities in the world. This is what God told Isaiah would happen to Babylon. "Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, who will not regard silver, and as for gold, they will not delight in it. Also their bows will dash the young men to pieces, and they will have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eye will not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of the kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans' pride, will be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It will never be inhabited, nor will it be settled from generation to generation. Even now it's not. Nor will the Arabian pitch tents there, nor will the shepherds make their sheepfolds there. Isaiah 13:17 through 20. Isaiah claimed that God told him that Babylon would be completely destroyed and that the Medes would do it. When Isaiah wrote his prediction, the Medes were weak. Most of the Medes were ruled by other nations, and the remaining Medes were not unified. The Cambridge History of Iran, 1985, Volume 2, page 80, says this. It would have been impossible for them to capture or destroy the strong city of Babylon. Isaiah's prediction appeared to be wrong. When the Assyrians destroyed Babylon in 689 BC, Isaiah's prediction appeared to be completely impossible. The Medes could not fight against a city that was gone. Ezra chapter 5, King Darius. Here we see Darius the Mede, and they show him as black. You can see the braids in his head and all of the cornrows. So here's the letter that was written to Darius, Tatanai's letter to King Darius. This is in Ezra chapter 5. To King Darius, cordial greetings. Verse 8, the king should know that we went to the district of Judah, to the temple of the great God. The people are building it with large stones and placing the timbers in the walls. The work is being carried on with diligence and is making rapid progress under their direction. We questioned the elders and asked them, who authorized you to rebuild this temple and to finish it? We also asked them their names so that we could write down the names of their leaders for your information. This is the answer they gave us. We are the servants of the God of heaven and earth, and we are rebuilding the temple that was built many years ago, one that a great king of Israel built and finished. But because our ancestors angered the God of heaven, he gave them into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar the Chaldean, king of Babylon, who destroyed this temple and deported the people to Babylon. However, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Babylon, King Cyrus issued a decree to rebuild this house of God. He even removed from the temple of Babylon the gold and silver articles of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem and brought to the temple in Babylon. Then King Cyrus gave them to a man named Sheshbazzar, whom he had appointed governor. And he told him, take these articles and go and deposit them in the temple in Jerusalem and rebuild the house of God on its site. So this Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundations of the house of God in Jerusalem. From that day to the present, it has been under construction, but it is not finished yet. Now, if it pleases the king, let a search be made in the royal archives of Babylon to see if King Cyrus did in fact issue a decree to rebuild this house of God in Jerusalem. Let the king send his decision in this matter. In other words, we want to finish building it. It has stopped. We need you to make another decree similar to what Cyrus decreed, because the work has been stopped. Returning to Zion. Darius the Mede. The work ceased from 536 to 519 BC, a total of 17 years. 519 BC, though, is the year when the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, son of Iddo, prophesied to the Jews who were in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of the God of Israel who was over them. Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, son of Jozadak, began rebuilding the temple of God in Jerusalem. With them were the prophets of God supporting them. Ezra 5, 1-2. So here's the second decree issued. In 519 BC, King Darius made a decree for the prosecution of the work of finishing the house of God. Ezra 6, 1-12. Under this decree, the temple was finished, Ezra 6:13-22. This temple in breadth and height was double that of Solomon's. My Lord. Solomon's temple was double that of the tabernacle. This temple was double that of Solomon's. Its glory exceeded the former temple. Haggai 2:9. Here we see the dazzling splendor of Zerubbabel's temple. The prophet Haggai was one of the three post-exile prophets. Along with the prophets Zechariah and Malachi, he returned to Judah after the edict of King Cyrus in 539 BC allowed the Jews exiled to Babylon to return to their homeland. His mission directly impacted events recorded in the book of Ezra, Ezra 5:1. Haggai's prophetic ministry is precisely dated according to the lunar calendar to the year 520 BC, in the second year of the reign of Darius I of Persia, ruled 521 to 486 BC. A decade after the death of King Cyrus I of Persia, Haggai 1:1, 1:15, 2:1, 2:10, 2:20. Probably using the Hebrew liturgical calendar, he refers to events in Judah between August and December of the year 520 BC in 4 sermons. There you see engraved on the wall the return of God's people to Zion. You see them lining up to go do the work of finishing the temple of God. They're building anew. Returning to Zion, 520 BC. When the returned exiles from the tribes of Judah and Benjamin first arrived in Judah, they immediately rebuilt Yahweh's altar of sacrifice on the foundations of the original altar of the first temple and reestablished the rituals of worship in the morning and evening, afternoon. That's called the daily sacrifice. That's important for the work of the book of Daniel we'll be doing later. Talmud sacrifice and other rituals of worship continued, as in the book of Exodus 29:38-42 and Ezra 3:1-6. After the Samaritans, Gentiles who occupied what had been the northern kingdom of Israel and who adopted the worship of Yahweh, they interfered with the rebuilding work on the temple stopped for about 17 years, from 537 to 520 BC. Ezra 4:1-5. God intervened by sending his prophet Haggai to speak to Zerubbabel, the Davidic prince and governor appointed by the Persians, to the high priest Jeshua in Ezra 1, and the people. Haggai's first oracle dates to August of 520 BC. There you see the picture of Haggai preaching to the people and telling them, come on, let's do this. Let's return to Zion. Returning to Zion. Summary of the second decree. The second decree, King Darius made a decree, 519 BC, for the speedy prosecution of the work until the house of God should be finished. Ezra 6:1-12. Under this decree, the temple was completed. At its dedication, the Jews offered 100 bullocks, 200 rams, and 400 lambs, and for a sin offering, 12 he-goats. Ezra 6:15-19. Notice you don't hear about worshiping idols or bringing idols into the temple. No, sir. They're worshiping God in spirit and in truth. Once again, the standards of the Bible we embrace. They're going back to the fellowship of God, body, soul, and spirit. Offering on the altar all of these bullocks and rams, 100 bullocks, 200 rams, and 400 lambs. Yay, yay. Ezra chapter 6, verse 1-12. King Darius then issued an order, and they searched in the archives stored in the treasury at Babylon. A scroll was found in the citadel of Ecbatana in the province of Media, and this was written on it. Memorandum. In the first year of King Cyrus, the king issued a decree concerning the temple of God in Jerusalem. Let the temple be rebuilt as a place to present sacrifices, and let its foundations be laid. It is to be 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide, with 3 courses of large stones and 1 of timbers. The costs are to be paid by the royal treasury. Also the gold and silver articles of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar took from the temple in Jerusalem and brought to Babylon, are to be returned to their places in the temple in Jerusalem. My Lord, this is a type of the vessels of the temple, are the type of the people, the saints of God. And just as those vessels were used to worship the gods of gold, God had those holy vessels sent back to the temple after Nebuchadnezzar and them died. They are to be deposited in the house of God. That's where they belong. And we people of God belong in the church of God. And God took his vessels from all the places where they've been scattered, all denominations, all creeds of men, all cults, and he brought his people back from all those places in the evening of time, even to in this day, as the truth is going forth with all type of things, the word of God preached, radio broadcast, Facebook, all avenues, even this video is bringing and gathering God's people into one flock, one fold, the church of God. Now then, Tatanay, governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-Bozenah, and you other officials of that province, stay away from there. My Lord, do not interfere with the work on this temple of God. Let the governor of the Jews and the Jewish elders rebuild this house of God on its site. Moreover, I hereby decree what you are to do for these elders of the Jews in the construction of this house of God. Their expenses are to be fully paid out of the royal treasury from the revenues of Trans-Euphrates, so that the work will not stop. Whatever is needed, young bulls, rams, male lambs for burnt offerings to the God of heaven, and wheat, salt, wine, and olive oil, as requested by the priests in Jerusalem, must be given them daily without fail, my Lord, so that they may offer sacrifices pleasing to the God of heaven and pray for the well-being of the king and his sons. Furthermore, I decree that if anyone defies this edict, a beam is to be pulled from their house, and they are to be impaled on it. And for this crime, their house is to be made a pile of rubble. May God, who has caused his name to dwell there, overthrow any king or people who lifts a hand to change this decree or to destroy this temple in Jerusalem. I, Darius, have decreed it. Let it be carried out with diligence. Hallelujah to the Lamb. So let's back up. Let me understand this. They found the decree of Darius. Cyrus said, lay the foundation, build the temple. Darius said, finish the temple. Darius says, I'm going to do what Cyrus did. God has made me the king over all the earth. I want Tatanay, he named them, and Shethar-Bozenah, I want these guys to stay away from there. Don't interfere with the work of the temple. That's in this decree. Let the governors of the Jews and the Jewish elders rebuild the house. That's the next thing. And then I decree that their expenses be fully paid out of the treasury. And then I decree that the work don't stop. And then I decree that whatever they need of animals to offer, young bulls, rams, male lambs, and burnt offering, I want them all offered. Wheat, salt, wine, and olive oil, as requested by the priests. I want it all to be given to them daily, without fail. And when they offer sacrifice, pray for me and my family. That's what the king is saying. Pray for me and my family in this decree. And I decree if anybody defies this edict, take a beam from their house and impale them with it. For this crime, make their house a pile of rubble. And may God, who calls his name to dwell here, may he overthrow any king who lifts his hand against this decree. Now that's a great decree. Darius went further than Cyrus. In their protection, in their building, he went further. Now the real lesson here is like it was in the first decree. The liberality of this heathen king, Darius, to support the worship of God, reproached the conduct of many kings of Judah It will rise up in judgment against the covetousness of wealthy professed Christians today who will not promote the cause of God. But the weapons of Christian ministers are not carnal, faithful preaching, as in Haggai and Zechariah and Malachi. Faithful preaching, holy lives, fervent prayers, patient suffering when called to it are the means to bring men into obedience to Christ. What a beautiful, beautiful close to the second decree. Medes and Persians